The war hadn't reached Earth's soil yet, but it was close. Everyone could feel it. The tension crackled in the air like dry lightning. Space stations buzzed with hurried commands, and human recruits were being pushed into training halls faster than ever. Among them was Darren Holt, a quiet maintenance officer who preferred tools over rifles. He had joined the fleet not as a soldier, but as a mechanic. His hands fixed engines, not broke bones. But even the repair crew now traveled closer to the front lines. He was posted aboard the Crimson Halo, a diplomatic vessel designed for peace talks but now heavily armored for war. The Crimson Halo was orbiting a contested moon in the Zyran system when everything changed. One moment, the crew was preparing for inspections. The next, the ship received a surprise visit from a royal delegation. Not just any delegation, this one included the Queen of Vacor herself. Alien queens didn't usually meet humans without 10 layers of protocol. But today, Queen Arvaleth, ruler of the mighty Vacorian Empire, stepped aboard with only a small guard. Her reasons weren't clear. The human officers panicked to prepare everything. Everyone was tense. No one wanted to insult a species that could rip open warships with mind thought alone. Darren was cleaning the entry chamber when she arrived. He had grease on his sleeve and a scuffed rag in hand. He didn't expect to see her. But the guards entered first, followed by the Queen in living gold armor that shimmered like molten light. The humans saluted. Darren moved out of the way fast. But in his nervousness, the dirty rag brushed against the front of her armor. It left a faint shine where a dull patch once was. He realized what he'd done and froze in place, eyes wide. The room went silent. The guards stiffened. One even raised a hand to his weapon. The Queen looked down slowly at the polished spot, then up at Darren. Her expression didn't change. For several heartbeats, no one moved. Then her voice, smooth like obsidian, filled the air. Do you know what that means? The words were not shouted. They were not angry. But they were heavy, thick with layered meaning Darren didn't understand. He looked around, hoping someone would speak for him. No one did. I was just wiping the console, he stammered. Didn't mean to touch your armor. One of the alien guards made a sound. It was not quite a growl, not quite a laugh. Something between threat and surprise. The Queen lifted a hand, silencing them. She stepped closer. Darren stood his ground, though his boots felt like they'd melted to the floor. She reached to her armor and touched the polished spot gently. You polish the heart plate. Only bondservants are allowed to do that. Her eyes scanned his face, or mate's. Darren's throat went dry. His ears heard the words, but his brain struggled to place them into any safe category. Surely this was a misunderstanding. A cultural mix-up. A trick of translation. But then she leaned in and added something else. In my culture, to polish the heart plate is to declare worth. And in return, I must test it. He blinked. Test? To see if you're truly worthy of what your hands have touched. Before he could respond, she turned to her guards and said something sharp in her native tongue. They left the room. Without protest, but with curious glances back at Darren. The Queen was now alone with him. I don't understand what I did, he admitted. That is the human way, she replied. To act without knowing the consequences. It is also your strength. Darren finally took a breath. He wanted to walk out. But his feet didn't listen. Something about her tone, her gaze, the pressure in the air, it all held him in place. She removed her gauntlet slowly, revealing skin that shimmered like dark amethyst. Let us see what kind of man polishes a queen's armor. That was when the alert blared. The ship had picked up movement outside. Multiple Vacorian vessels, uncloaking near the moon's dark side. All weapon systems came online. The Queen didn't flinch. It seems your people may soon need a warrior more than a servant. Darren looked toward the door, unsure whether he was about to be arrested, tested, or killed. But Queen Arvileth simply smiled. A rare, dangerous thing you've started. Something human. The question is, will you survive it? He didn't have an answer. The room trembled under the pressure of the incoming ships. Emergency lights turned red as sirens howled through the corridors. Darren didn't move. Neither did the Queen. Her focus was locked on him, even while the ship prepared for battle. Outside the glass wall, 3 Vicorian cruisers floated like silent beasts. No one had been warned of their arrival. Their sudden presence made every officer panic. Were they here for her? Or had something gone wrong? Is this an attack? Darren asked, his voice low. Queen Arvileth stepped past him toward the window. They will not fire unless I command it. But my people will not wait forever for an answer. To what? She turned her head slightly. To the signal I just gave. By allowing you to polish my heart plate and not punishing you, I sent a message. What message? That I am choosing. Darren blinked. Choosing what? A consort. A war mate. Someone who will stand beside me in battle and ceremony alike. His heart thudded painfully in his chest. I didn't mean to send any message. I was just cleaning. Intent does not matter, she said. Symbolism does. He opened his mouth, then shut it. What could he say? That their culture was wrong? That she should ignore tradition? That might be worse than offense. It could be seen as cowardice. Before he could speak, the ship jolted. The alien cruisers had locked weapons. Human defense systems activated in response. Missiles, shields. Everything pointed to disaster. Darren ran to the console near the wall. He opened the command channel. This is Technician Holt. Get Commander Reyes to the diplomatic wing now. Tell him. The door hissed open before he finished. Commander Reyes burst in, flanked by armed guards. What in hell's name is happening here? He snapped. The Queen raised one brow, calm despite the danger. Your soldier has made a claim upon me. My ships await confirmation. Reyes turned to Darren, face pale. Is this true? I swear I didn't mean to, Darren said. I just wiped her armor with a rag. Reyes muttered a string of curses. Then he looked at the Queen. Surely this is a misunderstanding. Human cultures don't recognize these rituals. But ours does, she replied. And we are not in human space. Reyes hesitated. So what now? She must be tested. One of her guards said from the hallway. She invoked the right. He must face the trial. Reyes looked at Darren again. You good at trials? I fix toilets, Darren replied. Not fight alien monsters. Arvileth's lips curled slightly. Then let the trial begin. Within hours, the center chamber of the ship was converted. Not into an arena, but into a chamber designed by her engineers. A space of swirling gravity, weighted steps, and floating platforms. The trial of worth was not only physical, it was emotional, symbolic, and mental. Darren stood at the center, dressed in a plain exosuit. Across from him floated 3 Vicorian challengers. Each held a different weapon. None of them spoke. A voice echoed above. It was the Queen's. You will not win with strength. Show me courage. Show me your value. He took a shaky breath. The first challenger flew toward him, a blur of motion. Darren ducked, rolled, and scrambled behind a pillar. He didn't have weapons, just a toolkit strapped to his side. He pulled a small welding laser and aimed it. The beam struck the platform supports. One cracked. The alien stepped on it and fell through. Darren didn't hurt him, but used the environment to win. The second came next. She was faster and smarter. But Darren used wiring and gravity pulses to create traps. He redirected pressure lines, making sudden bursts that knocked her off balance. Finally, the last opponent stood still. He didn't move. He simply stared. Darren stepped forward. Are you going to fight? No, I am the trial of truth. Answer this. Would you accept her hand if there were no crown behind it? The question made him pause. Everything had moved so fast. But in that still moment, Darren remembered the way she looked at him. Not with power, but curiosity. Not just royalty, but presence. Yes, he said simply. The challenger stepped aside. The room filled with light. The queen descended slowly, armor shimmering, no longer with guards. Only her voice followed. Then the trial is complete. You are not strong, but you are clever and honest. He bowed slightly, unsure what to do. What happens now? You are mine, she said. Unless you choose to walk away. Darren thought for a long moment. Then he looked around the silent chamber. Every eye watched him. His breath was steady now. His answer came not from fear, but choice. I'll stay. The queen's eyes sparkled. Darren didn't sleep that night. Not because of fear, but because his mind refused to slow down. One moment he was a ship technician, and now he was tied to a queen through an alien ritual he barely understood. Every decision felt too large for one man to carry. He sat in the crew quarters, staring at the ceiling. Outside the window, the alien ships hovered silently in orbit. Their presence made the humans uneasy. Even the captain walked lighter now, whispering orders instead of barking them. A soft chime rang at the door. Before he could answer, the panel opened. Queen Arvaleth stepped inside. No guards, no armor. Just her robe, long and dark with silver threads glowing softly like starlight. You are awake, she said simply. Darren stood quickly. I wasn't sure if I should speak to you after the trial. She walked slowly around the room, her eyes observing every detail. You passed the test. That changes your position. You are no longer a simple crewman. I don't feel different. You will, she replied. He motioned toward the small table. Would you like to sit? She did. Her movements were quiet and precise. Even seated, she held the posture of someone used to command, but her voice softened. You did not have to stay. You could have walked away. I know, he said. But I didn't want to. That choice has consequences. He nodded. Everything does. There was silence between them, but not an awkward one. More like a space where thoughts were shared without words. She studied him with a strange expression. Not judgment, but curiosity mixed with caution. You humans form bonds quickly, she said. Your emotions move like wind, fast, unpredictable. And your people are like stone, heavy and slow to shift. She raised a brow. Is that how you see me? No, he replied. I think you're more like fire. You change everything you touch. That made her pause. Her eyes flickered toward the floor, then she looked up again. There is something you must know about what comes next. He leaned forward. Go on. In my empire, a consort is more than a partner. He becomes part of the bloodline, trusted with secrets, with power, but also with responsibility. I've never led anything more than a repair crew, Darren said. You will have to learn. Fast, she rose from her seat and moved closer. Our enemies will see you as weakness. A human, unfit. They will try to shame me, break you, perhaps kill you. And what about you? He asked. I will not let them. She reached toward him, her hand brushing lightly against his shoulder. The gesture was simple, but Darren felt the weight behind it. In her culture, perhaps even a touch had meaning. What do I have to do? He asked. You must train, learn our ways, learn our history, and you must be tested again. But this time, by my people. Another trial, not of combat, of spirit. He nodded slowly. When? We leave at sunrise. The next day arrived too quickly. Darren stood on the landing deck, wearing a new set of armor. It was lighter than human suits, flexible like cloth, but strong enough to stop blades. The queen stood beside him in full royal gear, her helmet under one arm. The crew saluted as they passed. Not because they were ordered, but because they now saw something else in him, not just a mechanic, not just a man, but someone chosen by a power they barely understood. They boarded her private shuttle. Inside, the walls pulsed with soft blue light. The floor responded to steps like liquid metal. It flew silently through space, heading to the Vicorian capital. Darren sat beside her. "I'm still scared." "You should be," she said. "Fear means you understand the cost." They arrived hours later. The capital world was unlike anything he imagined. Floating temples, cities carved into cliffs, beasts with crystal fur roaming beneath glowing skies. It was a place of impossible beauty and quiet danger. As they exited the ship, a crowd waited. Thousands of her people, some curious, some angry. All watching, an elder priest stepped forward. His eyes were cold. "This is the human?" Arvaleth nodded. "He is mine." The priest did not bow. Instead, he stared at Darren. Then he must prove his soul is strong, or be broken. Darren met his gaze without flinching. The Temple of Trials was carved into the bones of a mountain. Black stone pillars rose into a violet sky, and silver vines grew along the walls like living veins. Darren stood at the center of a wide circular chamber. The alien crowd surrounded him, watching with silent judgment. Queen Arvaleth stood beside the priest, her expression unreadable. Her armor shone in the filtered light, but her eyes remained on Darren. She didn't speak. She didn't interfere. This part he had to face alone. The elder priest raised a long staff carved with ancient symbols. "Human, you are not one of. US, you were not born to the blood. Yet you stand beside our queen. This is not permitted unless your spirit is seen and accepted." Darren nodded once. "You will face 3 visions," the priest continued. "They will not harm your body, but your mind must endure. If you run, you fail. If you break, you are cast out. What if I pass?" Darren asked. "Then you will be recognized." The crowd began to hum, low and deep, a sound like the earth breathing. The priest lowered the staff to Darren's chest. A sharp pulse ran through his body. His vision blurred. His knees wobbled. Then everything went dark. He opened his eyes to a barren field. Cold wind howled around him. His clothes were torn. His hands bled. In front of him lay a broken earth flag, soaked in mud. He turned and saw the wreckage of a human outpost. Fires smoldered. No bodies, but the silence was loud. A figure appeared at the edge of the field. It looked like him, but older, hardened, bitter. "You think being chosen makes you special?" The older version said. "You think you're ready for what's coming?" "I don't know," Darren said. "Then you'll die." The vision stepped forward. "You left your people. You bonded to a queen. You wear armor that isn't yours. When war comes, will you fight for her or your kind?" Darren didn't answer right away. He looked down at the flag, then toward the mountains in the distance. "I won't choose between them," he said. "I'll protect both." The older self laughed. "Then you'll have to be more than human. I'm learning." The wind grew louder. The vision vanished. The field melted away. Now he stood in a room made of mirrors. Each reflection showed a different version of himself. Some noble, some cruel, some afraid. One mirror cracked, then shattered. From the shards, a voice whispered, "Which of these are you?" He reached toward the mirror that showed him as he was now. Plain, simple, unsure, but standing. "This one," he said. "Because I'm not pretending." The chamber faded. He blinked. Now he stood inside a throne room. Queen Arvaleth sat on the throne, wearing a crown of flame. At her feet, hundreds of alien nobles stared at him. She looked down with fire in her eyes. "This is your future," the vision of the queen said. "You are beside me." "But you are not one of them." They whisper. They plot. They wait for you to slip. What do they want? Darren asked. For you to fail. So they can tear me down through you. And what do you want? For you to be strong enough to stop them. He stepped forward. Then teach me. The Queen's voice became many. Her face became shifting. Masks, fear, rage, love, hope. Will you still hold my hand if it burns? He raised his hand. Yes. The throne exploded into light. The world dissolved. Darren fell forward and opened his eyes. He was back in the Temple of Trials, lying on the cold stone floor. His breath came fast. Sweat dripped from his brow. The crowd was silent. The elder priest stood above him. You saw the truths? Darren nodded. I faced them. And you did not run. No. The priest looked at the Queen. She gave a single nod. The priest lifted his staff. Then you are marked. Light burst from the staff's tip and seared a glowing mark into the air above Darren's chest. It didn't burn, but it felt heavy, final, binding. The crowd bowed. For the first time they bowed to a human. Darren stood in the center of the Vicorian Hall of Flame, where only the most honored warriors were permitted to walk. The mark above his chest glowed softly, reacting to the high-energy particles in the air. Around him, noble eyes followed his every move. Some held curiosity. Some still held contempt. Queen Arvaleth walked beside him, her voice low as they passed the statues of ancient emperors. They bowed to you, but not all accept you. Symbols do not change hearts overnight. I didn't come here to be loved, Darren said. I came because I didn't want to walk away. That is why I believe in you. They stopped before a massive gate made of dark metal. The gate bore the crest of the Queen's bloodline, a roaring serpent woven through a ring of stars. 2 guards stepped forward, armor clinking as they opened the seal. Warm air rushed out, heavy with the scent of old fire and molten stone. Inside was the private chamber of the Queen, not a bedroom, but a sacred space meant only for those she claimed as her own. It was not lavish. Instead, it was filled with weapons, scrolls, and relics of war. Darren stepped in without hesitation. She removed her helmet and placed it on a stone pedestal. This is where I make all decisions. Before I wear a crown, before I command armies, I come here. Darren ran his hand across the surface of an old blade resting against the wall. Your people are born for battle. Yes, she replied. But we are also born for bonds. My father ruled alone. I do not wish to repeat that path. He turned to face her. And you trust me enough to walk this one? You have walked through fire, both within and without. The next part will not be easier. What comes next? She stepped forward, eyes burning softly with that deep violet hue. We must announce it formally. The binding must be declared before the 5 tribes. And if they object, they will challenge you, not by sword, by custom. They will throw riddles, politics, and ancient codes to try and make you stumble. Darren smiled faintly. So more trials. Just with words instead of weapons. They can be more dangerous. Later that day, Darren was dressed in ceremonial robes stitched from cloth mined from starlight-infused plants. The robes shifted colors, depending on how he moved. A collar marked with the Queen's crest rested over his shoulders. He felt like a symbol, a living message, one that many would try to decode or reject. The grand hall of the 5 tribes opened its silver petals like a blooming flower. Inside, 5 massive thrones stood in a half-circle. On each throne sat a leader representing an ancient Vicorian house. Behind them stood thousands more. This was the political heart of the empire. Queen Arvaleth entered first. The hall fell silent. She walked to the central platform and raised her hand. I bring before you a man of Earth, a human. Darren Holt. He has faced the trials. He bears the mark. I speak now what has never been spoken. She turned to him. He is mine. A murmur rushed through the chamber. One of the tribal elders, stood. His robes were dark blue, lined with silver teeth. No queen has ever chosen an outsider. Our laws demand that he answer the call of proving. Darren stepped forward. Name it. The elder raised a scroll. You must debate against the keeper of lore. You must speak of our history, our honor, our way. And if your words are empty, she will unravel them. A figure stepped onto the platform. The keeper of lore was a tall, silver-haired woman whose eyes burned like twin suns. She looked at Darren, then began to speak. What is the meaning of the flame of Vakar? He paused, then answered. It is not fire, it is memory. Pain passed down so we never forget who we are. What is strength? Courage when fear says no. What is weakness? Pride without purpose. The hall was still. The keeper smiled. You have read. No, Darren said. I listened. The elder sat back down. Then let it be recorded. The human has passed. Queen Arvaleth looked into Darren's eyes. No words were spoken, but her hand reached for his. He didn't pull away. Asterisk. For 3 days, celebrations echoed across the capital world. Darren's name was whispered in markets, sung in royal songs, and carved into the side of a mountain temple. To the humans stationed nearby, it felt like something impossible had happened. One of their own had been accepted as more than an ally. He had become part of something ancient and powerful. But not everyone celebrated. Inside the Queen's war chamber, dark news spread like cracks in glass. A rival bloodline, led by General Veskmer, refused to acknowledge Darren's bond. They claimed the Queen's choice was a political weakness, that allowing a human to stand beside her was an insult to Vakorian purity. He's not one of us, Veskmer had said in a broadcast. He has not shed blood for our soil. He is a shadow hiding beneath her wings. The council had debated for hours. Some warned against igniting internal conflict. Others whispered that the general's faction had already begun stockpiling weapons. Darren listened to every word in silence. When the chamber emptied, Arvaleth stood before him. You see now what this path brings. I never thought it would be easy, he said. But I didn't expect them to call for war just because I'm here. It is not just you. It is what you represent. Change. She handed him a ceremonial dagger. Veskmer will not strike openly. He will provoke. He will bait. We must not give him reason to sway the undecided. So what do? We travel to the neutral moons. We show the people that your presence strengthens, not divides. The Queen's shuttle lifted through clouds, slicing through ion storms as it headed for the neutral zone known as the Mirror Moons. These moons held no military forces, only diplomacy, markets, and history. It was sacred ground for negotiation. Darren stood on the balcony of the guest palace, overlooking a lake of blue glass. The stars reflected perfectly in the water, making it feel like the sky had wrapped around the world. He didn't hear the footsteps behind him until it was too late. A figure in black robes moved fast. A blade flashed. Darren turned, raising his arm. Pain ripped through his shoulder as steel scraped against bone. Guards shouted. The attacker vanished into shadows. Arvaleth was the first to reach him. Her hands pressed against the wound, her voice cold with fury. They sent assassins. They dare touch what is mine, Darren groaned. I'm fine. No, you're not, she said. This was a warning. They want you to run. I won't. He sat through medical treatment without flinching. The pain didn't matter. What mattered was the look in her eyes. Not just anger, fear. Not for herself, but for him. Later that night, she stood at the edge of the bed where he rested. The light was dim, her armor removed, her expression softer. I did not expect to care so quickly, she said. But when I saw the blood, I felt something ancient inside me stir. Not rage, not shame. Just the fear of losing what I just found. You won't lose me, he said. Not to them. She sat beside him. When this is over, if we survive, would you still stay? I'd stay even if we didn't, he whispered. The next morning, a council of neutral elders called a meeting. Darren stood at the Queen's side, arms still bound in healing wraps. Veskmer appeared through the smoke-filled gates. He wore crimson war robes and carried a chained beast that snarled at the guards. So this is the human, Veskmer said. Still breathing. Still standing, Darren replied. The elder in the center raised a hand. There will be no bloodshed here. Speak your challenge with words, not weapons, Veskmer sneered. Then let him answer this. What does it mean to carry our crest if you were not born of our stars? Darren stepped forward. It means I carry the weight by choice, not by birth. And if that weight breaks you, then I'll carry it broken. But I won't let go. The hall fell silent. Even the chained beast lowered its head. Veskmer said nothing. Then he turned and walked away. The challenge had ended. But the war was still coming. The skies over Vacor turned red as the enemy ships broke orbit. Veskmer had made his decision. No more threats. No more debates. He had declared open rebellion against the Queen and all who stood with her. His message was simple. Remove the human or face extinction. The Queen stood on the balcony of her war tower, watching the incoming fleet. The golden armor she wore shimmered against the storm clouds. But it was her silence that made the guards nervous. She said nothing for a long time. Darren stepped beside her, his shoulders still sore beneath the healing wraps. He looked out at the sky, then at her profile. How many ships? 18, she answered. All armed, all loyal to his cause. And ours? 7, maybe 8, if the border patrols return in time. He didn't flinch. Then we fight. She looked at him for a long moment. You could still leave. My people would not blame you. But you would. I would never say it. You wouldn't have to, he said. I didn't earn my place just to run when it gets hard. She turned to him fully, placing one hand on his chest. Then stand with me. Not as a shield. Not as a symbol, but as yourself. I'm yours, he said. From the moment I touched your armor. The Queen called her war council to the high spire. Generals, strategists, and tech officers gathered around a glowing map. Darren stood. Among them, no longer an outsider, no longer just a mechanic. Now he spoke with purpose. They'll try to split our line with a forward charge. Their fastest ships will strike the capital, while the rest pressure our flanks. We can't defend both sides. One of the generals frowned. Then what do you suggest? Let them hit the capital, Darren said. But we empty the city. First, we make it look full. Then we strike their core from behind while they're distracted. That's suicide, another officer said. No, the Queen interrupted. It's human. The room fell silent before nods of agreement passed from face to face. Plans formed quickly. Weapons were loaded. Civilians were evacuated underground. The city above remained lit, buzzing with false signals and decoys. As dawn broke, Veskmer's ships entered the atmosphere. The sky cracked with sonic thunder. Fire trailed behind the cruisers as they descended toward the capital. Darren sat inside a sleek assault shuttle with the Queen and her strike team. Plan was dangerous, but it was their only chance. They would drop behind enemy lines, strike the command cruiser, and sever the head of the rebellion. As they soared above the rooftops, explosions lit up the sky. One cruiser fired directly at a decoy tower. The building erupted into flame. Darren closed his eyes, hoping the illusion held long enough. Their shuttle dove low, avoiding sensor locks. Then the hull shook as they landed hard on the command ship's rear hangar. The Queen was first to leap out. Her sword burned with electric fire. Darren followed, rifle in hand. For a moment he was just a man again, no crown, no bond. Just a soldier fighting for what mattered. They moved through the metal halls, silent as breath. One by one, guards fell. The strike team carved a path through fire and steel until they reached the command bridge. Veskmer stood there, waiting. He turned slowly, his armor crimson and marked with blood symbols. So the Queen brings her pet. Darren stepped forward. I'm no pet. Then die like a warrior. Veskmer charged. His blade screamed. Through the air, the Queen blocked the first strike. Darren rolled aside, grabbing a fallen weapon. Sparks flew. Blades clashed. Roars echoed. Then Darren saw the opening. As the Queen locked weapons with Veskmer, his guard dropped just slightly. Darren didn't think. He acted. One shot. Clean. Precise. The round struck the rebel in the side. Veskmer stumbled. Arvaleth moved like lightning. Her blade pierced his chest and burst from his back. He dropped to his knees, coughing fire. Then he fell. Silence followed. No one moved. Then the Queen looked at Darren. You ended him. We ended him. The ship began to shudder. Systems failing. They had to run. The team escaped just before the engines exploded. In the sky above the capital, the enemy fleet saw the signal. Their leader was dead. One by one, their ships powered down and surrendered. The battle was over. The capital city of Vakor, had never seen peace arrive so quietly. After days of fire and thunder, the silence felt unreal. Ships floated without. Weapons armed. Flags of surrender waved in every district once held by Veskmer's forces. Queen Arvaleth stood atop the grand terrace, dressed not in armor but in the flowing robes of unity. Her presence alone kept order. Her eyes scanned the horizon, as if searching for the next danger. But for now, there was none. Darren stood beside her, robes layered in silver thread and marked with the royal sigil. His shoulders still ached, but the pain felt distant now. Every Vakorian who passed bowed their head to him. Not out of obligation, but respect. The Queen spoke softly. The rebellion is over, but the wounds will take time. We held the city. We won, he replied. We survived. But that is not the same as healing. He looked out across the towers, smoke still rising in faint trails. Will they accept me now? Some already do, others will follow. And those who don't, they will learn. Hours later, a gathering was called in the Hall of Three Suns. It was where only the most sacred declarations were made. The place where rulers were crowned. Where alliances were sworn. Where oaths became law. Darren entered with the Queen. He expected whispers. Instead, the hall stood silent. Not from suspicion, but anticipation. Something rare had happened. A new bond had formed, and the galaxy watched with breath held. Arvaleth stepped forward and raised a hand. We are not the same as we were. The war showed us that fear builds walls, but trust builds bridges. She turned to Darren. He did not conquer. He did not command. He stood beside me. Not as a trophy, not as a tool, but as proof. A priest stepped forward, holding a small crystal flame. Speak the vow. Darren placed one hand over his chest. I vow to walk beside the Queen, not ahead of her, and not behind. I will carry your battles, your burdens, and your bond. I will not flee. I will not falter. I will not forget. The priest lowered the flame. It touched his hand but did not burn. Instead, the royal crest shimmered across his skin. The mark of unity. The mark of belonging. Cheers rose like thunder. The hall shook with approval. And in that moment, a human stood not as outsider, but as equal. That night, Darren walked alone through the quiet gardens behind the palace. Stars blinked above like tiny fires. The air smelled of strange flowers that opened only during peace festivals. He heard her steps before she spoke. You escaped the party. I needed air, she smiled. So did I. They walked in silence, side by side, the way they always seemed to. She stopped near the fountain where violet fish glowed beneath the water. "I never planned for this," she said. "Not with you, not with anyone." "I never planned to polish your armor," he replied. She turned toward him. "You touched what was sacred. And somehow, it woke something I didn't know I'd buried. I didn't mean to change your life. You didn't change it. You revealed it." She reached out and took his hand. For a queen, the gesture meant everything. There was no audience, no ceremony. Just truth. He squeezed her fingers gently. "What now? Now we lead, together." Time passed. Months turned to seasons. Peace held. The new alliance between Earth and Vacor grew stronger. Other species took notice. Diplomacy bloomed where war once ruled. Darren walked through the engineering wings again, helping younger techs fix starship coils. They no longer called him outsider. They called him architect, advisor, brother, and every evening he returned to the chambers where the queen waited. No longer just royalty, no longer just tradition, but a partner who had chosen him the way he had chosen her. The polished mark on her armor remained untouched since that first day. Not because no one dared but because no one else needed to. It was his, and she was his.